Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Gear Toward Gear. My name is Sean, I'll be your host this evening, and I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're going to be talking all things communication, whether it be EDC or preparedness related. And so I've got a few things on the table that you can see, and we'll just kind of jump right into it and I'll tell you what these things are, kind of my philosophy behind them, and how I particularly use them. So I guess before we get into it, one of the things that I think we often take for granted, especially being 2019, is that we have these advanced, super powerful, super effective cell phones that we tend to use, and fewer and fewer households, especially in the US these days, have dedicated landlines. And so if something happens to your phone, if you lose it, if it gets broken or stolen, you could find yourself in a situation where you have no way to communicate with anybody because you don't have a landline in your home. And so the first thing I want to talk about is having a backup cell phone. And the idea for this, and I can't believe it never occurred to me until now, but this was spurred by a video from one of my subscribers, Frederick, shout out in Norway. He did a video on his one of his EDC kits, and in that kit he had a backup cell phone. And I thought, what a simple idea. I can't believe I've never thought of that. And I immediately went online to Amazon and I purchased this cell phone. This phone cost $15. So it's a super cheap phone. It comes from Track Phone is the company that sells them. The brand of the phone is Alcatel, but it's $15 and it's just a basic flip phone. It does have some functionality for web browsing and texting and things like that. But what's interesting about cell phones, and I knew this, but again, just never occurred to me to have a backup, is that any cell phone, as long as it has battery power, can call 911 in the US. So whether or not you have a service contract, if you have an old phone lying around that has a battery that works, or pick up something like this on Amazon for cheap, it will be able to dial 911 without any service contract that you have to pay for. So that's why I purchased this phone, and this is going to go into my EDC bag. And when I contacted Track Phone, the company that kind of sources these type of kind of pay-as-you-go burner phones, whatever you want to call them, I called their customer service hotline and I asked them, can this phone dial 911 without me paying for a service contract? And the answer they gave me was no. They said you have to purchase a service contract and pay for a monthly fee in order to make any calls, even to 911. And I did not believe them when they told me that. And so I tested it. And last night, I called 911 from this phone. And I wouldn't recommend doing that necessarily because obviously 911 is an emergency line and should be used as such. But I had to know, if I'm going to carry this for that purpose, I had to know if it would in fact contact 911, and it did. The dispatcher who answered was extremely friendly. I immediately told him it was not an emergency, but that I did have a couple questions, and he actually stayed on the line with me for a good 5 minutes to talk about it. And he said, yeah, any phone, it doesn't matter if you have service contracts or not, as long as there's a battery, you can make the call and we'll receive the call. And not only that, he was able to, while we were talking, he was able to tell me where I was located. So he said, yeah, I see the call came from an unregistered phone. And he told me the address where they predicted the call came from, and it was my address. So I can dial 911 at any time and have them triangulate my location with extreme accuracy with a $15 phone that I bought on Amazon. And my intention for this is to not purchase a service contract. My sole intention is to simply have it as an emergency backup for contacting 911 should my primary phone get lost, stolen, damaged, or something of that nature. I expect the battery on this to last about a month. And so what I did is I set up an automatic reminder in my primary cell phone, my iPhone, to remind me to charge this once a month. I don't plan on using it. Hopefully I never have to use it. But if I do, I want to make sure it's charged. So I did set up that reminder, and it did come with a basic, micro USB charger. So I think having a backup cell phone, whether it's something you buy brand new, like I did, or just an old, iPhone or an old crappy phone that you have lying around, that you used to use, as long as the battery's charged, you can call 911. So I think having a backup cell phone is a fantastic idea. Shout out Frederick. I really appreciate the suggestion there. So I picked that up, and I'm very happy with it. Moving to the left, we're going to get into a weather radio. And this is a receiver. It's not a transceiver, meaning I can only receive information from this device. I can't contact anybody through it. And it's a simple weather radio that I bought years ago on Amazon. And I think they still sell this exact model. And I'll leave a link to all of these in the description, as well as a link to Frederick's channel, who, like I said, kind of got me thinking about buying one of those extra cell phones. But this is a simple weather radio. It's got, an expandable antenna. It's got a built-in flashlight. I'll turn the volume down so I can show you a couple of the features. So it's got a built-in flashlight, which, not super bright, but I guess it's nice to have. And I have this preset to my local emergency weather bands. And so if I turn up the volume here, you'll probably hear what's going on in my part of Texas.
Arlington, cloudy, 41, south at 6. Denton, partly cloudy, 37, south at 5.
So as you can see, it's just a simple weather radio. It does have the option to listen to FM radio. So if you want to jam out to some music, you can. It also has AM radio, but it's primarily used as a weather band radio, and that's my primary use for it. And this has always lived in my EDC bag. However, that is changing. I am going to remove this from my EDC bag and put it in my emergency severe weather kit that I did a video on. And in place of it in my EDC bag, I'm going to have the cell phone, and I'm also going to add the Baofeng transceiver, which I'll get into in a second. This radio, two-way radio, transceiver, whatever you want to call it, I've always had in my vehicle, but just in the center console. And so now I'm going to put it into my EDC bag itself so that if I leave my vehicle, it'll still be with me and not left in the center console of my car. And the main difference with something like this is a Baofeng UV5R V2 Plus is the model number there, is that this is a transceiver. So as opposed to a receiver, this is a transceiver, so you can make contact with other people. It's a two-way radio. It also has the weather bands pre-programmed for my area, AM FM radio, a built-in LED light, a built-in SOS feature. It's just a more robust version of a weather radio that you can also use to make contact with other people. And they're not too expensive. You can get one for about $35 or a pack of two for about $60. And I actually just bought a pack of two additional radios because I broke one of the ones that I had. I dropped it, and the piece that holds the battery in shattered, and so it was no longer usable. So my wife has one in her vehicle. I will have one in my EDC bag now, and then the third one will go in my bedside table to be used as a weather radio if I just need to get some quick information while I'm lying in bed. These are great, super reliable. They've got a good range, really highly recommended and reviewed on places like Amazon. And for the price, kind of as an entry-level transceiver, I think it's a fantastic option. One thing to keep in mind with something like this is that it operates on what's called GMRS, which is a general mobile radio service. And in order to operate this legally in the US, you do have to have a GMRS license, and it costs $70. This is what it looks like. And it's good for 10 years. So this is a, $70 for 10 years, I think is worth it to be able to have the emergency weather band functionality, as well as be able to contact and communicate with people around you, whether it be on a road trip or in some sort of an emergency situation. So I really like these Baofeng radios. What I keep with mine, just kind of as an extra layer of preparedness, is I keep a spare battery. So these radios operate on a lithium-ion battery that is charged in a like a docking station. And so I'll charge these once a month just to make sure they're always fully charged. But I do also carry in my vehicle, which will now go in my EDC bag, one additional battery and a spare antenna. And this is just because I had a spare antenna from the one that I broke, and I figured it's, you know, not going to take up much space. So if this one gets damaged for whatever reason, I want to make sure I have an extra. So those are the two, I guess, accessories that I add to that in my EDC bag. Moving on, and actually, you know what? Before we move on, let me show you what you get when you purchase a Baofeng UV5R. So this is the box, and this one has not been opened, but the box that this came out of has been opened. So I'm going to show you what it comes with. So it comes with the radio itself, just kind of the body of the radio. It comes with the battery, of course. They also include a earpiece. So if you want to plug this into on the top of the radio, actually, I'm sorry, on the side, you've got a mic input. So if you want to kind of go Secret Service style and use an earpiece, you can do that. It comes with the antenna. It comes with a small lanyard, a wrist lanyard, and then the pocket clip. So that is what comes in the package, and when it's put all together, you get this, right? The antenna, the pocket clip, the battery. I don't use the lanyard personally or the earpiece, but that's what you're gonna get if you purchase a brand new Baofeng UV5R V2 Plus transceiver. So that is the 2A radio. The last piece of gear we'll talk about is a CB radio. So transceivers or 2-way radios operate on FM frequencies, and a CB radio operates on AM frequencies. And CB stands for citizen band, and there's no licensing required to use a CB radio. These are popular, you know, if you've watched, you know, movies like Smokey and the Bandit or things like that, you're familiar with what a CB radio is. This is also a transceiver, meaning you can receive and send information. And I'm going to take the antenna off just for now because it's quite large and just takes up some space. So it's a pretty big antenna. But the CB transceiver itself is different from the FM transceiver with the Baofeng, again, in that it operates on AM frequencies versus FM frequencies. And this is more dependent on line of sight. So if you are on a roadway or a highway, you're gonna probably get some good results from a CB radio. Or if you live in a really, really densely populated area like a city, like a metropolitan area, you're probably gonna get a lot of kind of crosstalk. You're gonna be able to hear people communicating via CB, and you can use this to contact those people, right? So if there's an emergency and you just need to kind of send out an SOS, you can go through the channels. CB radios operate on 40 different channels, and there are some sub-channels, but without getting into too much technical information, there's 40 main channels. And so if there was an emergency and you needed to contact somebody with the FM transceiver, you're typically using preset frequencies that you've decided on with your family. Whereas a CB radio, you can just cycle through the 40 different channels until you hear somebody and kind of send out an SOS if there was an emergency. Again, this will give you FM radio. It's got a built-in light, things like that. But what's cool about this one, and I'll move these a little further out of the way so I can show you some of the things that this CB radio comes with. And this one's made by Midland. It's decent. I think these go for about $80. It's got a pocket clip on it. But the way that they're powered is interesting in that it comes with 3 different options for powering the transceiver itself. So this is the main kind of battery pack. So this is the kind of the meat of it, right? This is the transceiver. This is simply the battery pack, and it uses AA batteries. So, you know, simple to replace if they go dead. But what's neat is that it also comes with 2 other options. So you've got the AA battery pack. In addition, it comes with a basically a cigarette lighter option. So this slides on in the same fashion and then simply plugs into your cigarette lighter if you have one in your vehicle. I don't in my vehicle. My wife does. And that way you can power it indefinitely. So you don't have to rely on the batteries dying. You can just plug it in and have constant power. It also has an option for adding an external antenna if you want to add one to the top of your vehicle, or just kind of a loose extra long antenna for more range. You can do that. So that's another option for powering this particular CB radio. And then the last one is similar to the battery pack. The only difference with this one is that it's rechargeable. And so you would load this pack with rechargeable batteries. If I can get this open, you would put rechargeable batteries inside of here and then plug it in to your wall outlet, and it will recharge the batteries. And again, it's going to slide on the same way as all the others did and create your kind of your full package there. So 3 different options for how to power this particular device, which I think is neat depending on your preferences. I tend to go with just the battery pack. I don't use it often. I would take it with me on a road trip. And if I did, I would bring extra batteries. So it's neat that it comes with these other options. But for me, I just stick with the AA battery pack, and that's worked just fine for me. So that is the CB radio with its massive antenna. This is the 2-way transceiver or walkie-talkie. Did I catch a 9er in there? If you know that movie quote, put it in the comments and maybe I'll send you something. The simple weather radio and the backup cell phone. And again, with the Baofeng, I keep an extra battery pack and an extra antenna. So I don't think I've forgotten anything. I'm sure once I watch this back, I'll have missed something, but these are just a few things that I think are relatively budget friendly and could really come in handy in an EDC situation or in an emergency. And I tend to look at these as more of emergency preparedness items. The only one that I use as an everyday carry piece of gear that I actually use is the weather radio. Whether it's the dedicated weather radio or the Baofeng that has the same functionality. And I have that preset so that when it turns on, it goes straight to the weather radio.
Channel mode. Frequency mode.
Cloudy with a 30%.
So I do use the weather radio functionality pretty regularly, but the others are more kind of emergency preparedness options. So that's my kind of overview and philosophy on communication devices. Again, thank you, Frederick, for the idea to kind of spark that for me to pick up a backup cell phone for calling 911. And I'm not entirely sure, I'm not a radio expert by any means, and I'm not quite sure how all of this would work internationally in terms of just different radio bands and frequencies and things of that nature, and you know the different emergency numbers that they have in different countries and how that would work. But for the US, kind of what I went over is how things would generally work. So again, we've got the Alcatel cell phone, $15, kind of a no-name brand weather radio that I think costs around $15 as well. These Baofengs go for about $35 or 2 for $60. And the Midland CB is going to go for, I think, right around 80 bucks. Links in the description to all of these, as well as Frederick's channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please do like, subscribe, comment, and share, because we do have this giveaway coming up here in the near future, hopefully, once we can cross that 100 subscriber threshold. And quick spoiler alert, I do have a brand new knife on order. I pre-ordered it and it should be arriving tomorrow. So the next video you'll see probably in a couple days will be a full review on a brand new 2019 release EDC knife from CRKT. So stay tuned for that. Thanks again, love you guys, and I'll see you on the next video.